channel. My name is Teni.
And I'm Jay.
And I'm Maura.
As you can see, we have a special guest today. And like she said, she's Maura. Thank you for joining us today. We're excited to have you here.
Thanks.
Yeah, so today Maura is going to be joining us to talk about a topic that I feel like most nurses might have heard of, or at least they can relate to. And the topic that we're going to be talking about today is called burnout. So, Maura, welcome. So, how would you say your experience with burn, or even first of all, before we even say about your experience, what would you feel like burnout, like what is the definition of burnout to you, like from
I
your own
think
perspective?
burnout, from my own perspective and experiences, and is where you have so much stress and anxiety related to work, and you have so many expectations placed on you without support that
Mm,
it means you don't want to work, or you go into work and you can't perform your best because you just don't have the energy or the support.
right. Burnout to you is when people place expectations to you without any support.
Yes, for
I
sure.
see. I see. And how long would you say you started working until you started experiencing the burnout? Because a lot of nurses that I've heard from, they said it's not. I mean, not to invalidate anyone's experience. I was like, oh, burnout before used to happen like after 10 years,
Mm.
But nowadays we don't see that. We don't see that that's the case anymore.
I definitely felt burnt out after a year of working in nursing. I started off in a medical ICU and then I worked in a PCU for 2 months. And near the end of the medical ICU and then working in the PCU, I was just so exhausted with work. I didn't want to go into work. I felt like I couldn't give the best care to my patients because of the work environments I was in, because of the expectations that were placed on me
Mm,
outside of just patient care. So
yeah.
I would say about a year. And then I needed to make a change in terms of where I was working and reevaluate where I wanted to go with nursing because I just didn't think I could last longer where I was.
Oh yeah, that is definitely relatable. I do share some of your sentiments in regards to nursing in general and just the unreasonable expectations that are being placed on a lot of nurses nowadays.
Yeah.
Especially after COVID, I feel like it just became the rules became more stringent and the expectations just kept increasing because patients kept getting sicker. So with a lot of nurses leaving the bedside because of they were closer to retirement age because of the pandemic, it just became a situation where those who are now coming into the workforce, they have to actually have all these expectations placed on them because there was no one else to fill the role.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think for me, burnout became so real, after COVID. I mean, burnout has been in place, has been there before COVID, but it became so real and everybody started talking about burnout after COVID. And I think the reason is because after the pandemic, people began to realize that nursing is not an a, so to say easy profession to go into because it takes a lot. It's gonna take a toll on your on your health, your physical well-being as well, and also your emotional and mental well-being. And I'll say for sure, I experienced that as a nurse, even 1 year into nursing, and it was quite tough, especially when you're going into a workplace. So you're going into nursing with little to no support. And what I mean by that is we have a lot of people that they've gone into travel nursing, and so when you go to a place to be staffed, the people that are supposed to train you are not necessarily available to train you. So you have to basically learn on your own or learn on the job, which is typical of nursing. But then you still have people to run back to, but that's not the case with the situation of things after COVID because people left to do travel nursing. They're like, if you're not gonna get paid the same amount they can get from traveling, then why would they stay being staffed?
Yeah.
Rather than
Absolutely.
just travel and make a lot of money.
Hmm.
And so we have a lot of older nurses that have more experience leaving the bedside and not even wanting to precept whenever they go to travel because they're like, this is not my place of work, and I shouldn't have to precept anyone.
Because they also don't get paid for precepting either.
Right, and even if they get paid, is what $1. That's not
Yeah,
Yeah.
enough.
like
I know
one
I got
dollar.
75 cents
Oh
whenever I precepted.
my
75
god.
cents.
Like
Yeah.
a whole life savings 75
Yeah.
cents. Like thank you so much.
Exactly.
This economy.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's not worth it for the people who even precept, and so they don't even bother to, except someone who is really so passionate. I'm like, oh, okay, I want to do this, but really, I think I understand from their own perspective to if they really don't want to accept any student, because it's hard on them and they don't get paid more for doing that, because it's extra work having to care for someone and having to have them rely on you. It's not beans
Oh yeah.
for
Like,
sure.
yeah, and for me, my own case was even, more peculiar because when I started nursing, I started right on a medical ICU that catered mostly to COVID patients. And seeing those patients, having to go through all the illnesses and deaths day in, day out, I would say my own burnout started at 6 months. I didn't even reach a
Yeah.
year. I was like, I'm so done with this. So I feel like one thing I noticed with, taking care of COVID patients was that lack of emotional connection with the patient. I just saw
Mm,
them as tasks, which
mm,
shouldn't be because they're human beings at the end of the day. So I would say that was one thing that really affected me, is that I just became unfazed, more or less.
mm.
And it really took a while for me to get back to being like, oh, I actually shouldn't be feeling like I see my patient deciding at 89. I'm like, they're fine. Like, I've seen worse.
They're
So
not
it's
fine
like, yeah, they're
though.
not fine. Like, definitely I should be more, I guess, proactive. But because I've just seen worse, I'm like,
Uh,
this is nothing. But yeah, I would say burnout is one thing that is very, very prevalent in the nursing profession. I mean, there are other professions that do experience it, but I feel like for nurses especially, it's so prevalent. I don't know why. It's just that thing that almost every nurse has probably experienced, if not all of us.
so what would you say the timeline was for you? 6 months?
Yeah, six
How about
months.
more? A
A
year?
year.
I'd say a year, about a year too. Because I mean, I spent like 4 months under my preceptor. Was it 4 months or 3 months?
3 months.
3 months under my preceptor. So yeah, I was still like a baby. Yeah, I was still like, oh, I'm under someone until I was like, boom, by myself. I was like, okay, this is real.
For real.
So that was my own experience. And so, moving on, I'm going to share with you all how we've been able to cope with burnout, or how to avoid burnout, or even how
Yeah.
to distress in a stressful situation, and how we've been able to progress in our career as nurses.
Yeah.
So, Maura, what would you say has helped you with coping with burnout, or even preventing that happening?
Well, I switched units and I went to a unit that I feel like has a much better work life balance, has a better patient ratio where I feel like I can be heard more, and the expectations, I just got off, I work in a cardiac vascular PACU now. And I finished orientation. No one has mentioned me having to be charged. No one has mentioned me having to have students. No one has mentioned me having a precept. Like, I am just a nurse. I have a 1-to-1 patient ratio 90% of the time. The only time it's 2-to-1 is if I'm holding a patient that's PCU level waiting for a bed. I still get critical care patients, so I get that. I don't know. I like having critical patients, but also at the same time, this position, I'm not stressing about keeping them alive for 12 hours. I stabilize them and then I send them to an ICU, which I feel like has reduced a lot of my anxiety and coming into work and going, okay, like, am I going to be fighting to keep someone alive for 12 hours? And then I just think work life balance in general. Like, when I'm outside of work, I'm outside of work. I don't want anyone calling me. I don't want anyone texting me about something that happened on the shift. Just leave me
Period.
alone.
Absolutely.
Period.
What happens at work stays at work.
Yes, exactly. You don't need to be calling me asking me questions.
And I think that has also helped me. Just feeding back on what you just said, having work stay at the place of work, I think helps a lot, because you have some bosses texting you outside of work about work, and so you're at home receiving this text message that also increases your burnout. But in a situation where, for me now, I also switched units to a unit where I'm much more happier than I used to be. Not to say I did not have a happy life on the other unit, but I can say that there has been a lot of improvement in my life, in my work, as well. And just having people to support me has also increased. Before, I always run away from a code situation, but I can tell you now, I can confidently stay in a code situation and say, yes, I know what to do. I might not be the code lead in code, but then I still know what to do in a code situation. And that, I think that comes up from just having the support system, having people to learn from, and has really helped me and even shaping my career as a nurse. Because I, for once, cannot really switch from, I can't leave the ICU completely because of my career, my future plans. And so I'm stuck here, but I love it here as well. And just having that support system has really helped me. And for sure, saying that work stays at work for sure. Anything work, don't bring it to my home. My home is my solace. I want to be at home. I want to be happy.
100%.
Um, Another thing for sure that has helped me is oh my god, I forgot. I'll come back to that.
Yeah, and so what were the how do I put it, characteristics or patterns that you saw with burnout? Like how did you know, okay, I am definitely burnt out? Like what kind of behavioral patterns or things were you doing or feeling that made you realize, like I'll say mine, but I just want to hear your
Mhm.
perspective. I feel like burnout for each person is different, but there's still like that similarity, like some people might describe this as burnout, some might say no, I didn't feel that way when I was burnt out. Like for me, when I was burnt out, I feel like I was definitely a lot more anxious.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Like my heart would be
Anxiety.
beating. I would be
Yes.
having something called a
What?
pre-shift anxiety.
Yep.
Like I was just
Mhm.
like, as soon as I wake up, it's just a feeling of dread and sense of impending doom, like they
Dude,
say for our
that's
patients.
bad. Panic.
Yeah, it's like
Panic
this
button.
panic. My heart is just beating every time I just walk in through the doors.
Oh my god,
But
that's
now
bad.
that I've switched units, I would say, okay, the panic is still there a little, because you're taking care of sick patients. It's never
Yeah.
gonna go away.
Mhm.
But I would say it's not like a full blown, panic mode situation. And another thing that I feel like also I noticed was reduced empathy for my patients.
Hmm.
Like I did not
Mm.
see them as human beings. I just saw them as, oh, here we go again.
Hmm.
Tasks, which you shouldn't be doing that as a nurse or as a person in general. Everyone is human. They have intrinsic value that regardless of what their situation is, regardless of what how sick they are, whatever they're going through, you still have to treat them as human.
Mhm.
And then the last one, I don't know, for me, a lot of fatigue. I was just sleeping
Yeah.
like someone who was, I don't know if I was pregnant or, like you would think maybe I was pregnant or something. I was just sleeping. Like I could sleep 14, 15 hours straight after a shift and I would still feel tired, which I think that might have also been linked to something
Low
else,
vitamin.
low vitamin D, because I had to go
Because
get,
all three of us worked night shift,
yes,
which was
night
the
shift.
other thing.
Low
Yeah.
vitamin
So,
D.
for real. So
Yeah.
those were like the three hallmark signs for me that I was like, yeah, this is definitely, like sometimes I would sleep so much that they would have to call, like
Yes,
my
Tenny was late. Tenny was late quite a few times.
no, they know, like they work with me, so they know. Oh, they know if Tenny is late, that she's
She's
tired.
sleeping.
And I used to go knock on the door.
Yes.
Oh my god, FYI, okay? How about you,
Uh,
Maura?
Definitely the fatigue for sure. Like my days off, all I wanted to do was sleep and rest. I didn't want to see anyone. I didn't want to talk to anyone. And I noticed a lack of empathy towards my friends and family. I would get really
Oh.
frustrated when they would complain about work or their personal life or anything because I'd be like, you don't understand what I have to deal with on a day to day basis. Like, I'm sorry, but you complaining because your boss gave you a to-do list that included a calendar and an Excel sheet is so irrelevant in comparison to what I'm dealing with, even though that's not a fair perspective or a healthy perspective because everyone deals with like situations differently. Every job carries their own stress and their own anxiety, and I just felt like it was making me a bad family member and a bad friend because I didn't have the energy and the emotional capacity to understand what they were going through and take it from their perspective. And then the pre-shift anxiety, that was huge for me too.
I think I share the same thing, especially the pre-shift anxiety. I remember always staying in my car for 5 minutes and praying, "Oh God, I hope I have a good patient assignment." It was a big thing. Every time I'm about to step out of my car, I'm like, "Oh God, please help me, help me, help me." It was that bad that I'm like, "Oh God, I hope I'm not gonna cry on this shift." And so that definitely was there for me. But now I can tell you, it's a little bit, it's more. I mean, it's a lot reduced compared to how I felt when I first started working as a nurse and I was burnt out. And second thing was I was always afraid of my patient assignment, which still,
Mm.
still goes down to what I said earlier. I'm always like, God, I don't know what this patient is coming. Especially when I'm getting an admission. Oh my God. I'm always so stressed that I'm like, God, I don't want this admission. I don't know what's coming. How am I going to do it? And so it was just too much. It was like just thinking about what can happen, what can go wrong. And if you have a good support system, you shouldn't feel that way. And I remember what I was going to say earlier about how I was able to avoid burnout or, kind of reduce it was because I started I stopped picking up extra shifts because back then I
Yes.
would pick up extra shifts to
Don't
make
pick
a
up
lot of money.
overtime.
But I told you I'm in a better place now. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
I'm in a much more better place not picking extra shifts. The money will
Absolutely.
come, but my health, my mental, emotional well being is more important to me than the money, because now I have to be able to create a balance in my life that
Mhm.
would sustain me till I grow old. You know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about? So
I
yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
I always say my mental health is worth more than $200,
Mhm.
which is
Yes.
probably like the average you would get from working, maybe like 10, 12 hours. So I'm like, $200 is not enough for me to
Right.
be sleeping 14 hours. It's like, no, we can't be doing that anymore. So yeah, I agree. One of the things that also contributed for me, the burnout, was overtime. Sometimes I would work 60 hours a week, 70 hours a week, just because of what the
And girl
money.
was working a lot. Dang,
Yeah,
this girl right there, she worked a lot.
and where's the money today? It's like you're just
6 days a
working.
week. Remember, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
10 days always on the
I
Yeah.
schedule.
know.
Bro,
I
now
couldn't do
you
it.
can't catch me working more than 4 days. Even that four, I'm like, I don't even want to do
Yeah.
this. And another thing that also contributed to my burnout is just the physical exertion that nursing puts on you. Because when I started, we had to, because of we're working with COVID patients, and these patients, I'm not trying to demean any patient. It's just they were a little bit, sturdier, because they're sick, and we have to prone them and basically put them on their face and their chest every shift.
Right, they're paralyzed. So
Yeah,
every
they're
time you have to change a body position, you're literally carrying their
carrying
whole
their
weight.
whole weight.
Yeah, no
Yes.
matter their stature, you're
Mhm.
still carrying that
Oh
whole
yeah.
weight to
So
position
that,
them.
yeah, like that
Yeah.
put a lot of strain on my back, especially my upper back. I mean, just starting out, and I was already getting back pain at what, 21. I was like, nah, we can't be doing this.
They
So
can't.
I was like, yeah, something has to change. So I had to do proper body mechanics, which was one thing that helped. Exercise helped a lot with burnout, for me at least. So
Interesting. I mean, yeah, that's our experience as nurses, experiencing burnout and how we've been able to avoid burnout. So we're gonna share some tips with you to avoid burnout. So if you're a nurse or you're trying to get into
or even
nursing,
just in any profession. This
true.
this this can apply to,
Mm-hmm.
well, mostly nurses, but other professions also experience burnout. So if you just want to know how to avoid burnout based on what helped us, just keep listening.
Yeah. So Maura, do you want to share some tips with people watching right now how to avoid burnout?
Well, I would say this is very applicable for nurses, but we have one of the very rare career fields where if you do not like where you are, you can very easily move and you can try something new. And there is no shame in starting on a unit and going, this is not for me, this is not sustainable, and then picking a new unit because we have the ability to do that. And sticking it out just to stick it out is not a valid reason for you to stay and exhaust yourself. What one nurse likes is not what another nurse would like. I could never do the ED, and I know ED nurses who could never do the ICU. I know ICU nurses who could never do the PACU. Everyone will have their own bread and butter, and you have to find yours so you actually enjoy going into work. And also, the people you work with matters a lot. You have to have friends where you can talk to them about what you're experiencing, they can relate to what you're going through, and you also still feel supported. I think that's super important too.
Oh yeah, I do agree. Like having coworkers that have your back and will support you is very important, because nursing is actually a very team-based work,
Hmm.
regardless of how you see it on the TV where it's just the nurse and the patient. But if that patient starts crashing, it's going to be your coworkers and your colleagues that are there on that shift that's going to be able to help you out. So yeah, yeah, Maura is definitely correct when she says all
Mhm.
these things. And for me, I would just add one thing that also helped, some hospitals, they offer this. They have the employee assistance program, which is like a counseling service for any employees that are feeling burnt out. So if that's something that your hospital offers, you can look into it. Our hospital, they offer, I think, 5 free counseling sessions with like a counselor or therapist. So you can do that and just talk to somebody if you feel like your friends or family are not able to understand what you're going through. And another thing that helped me was music. In fact, my Spotify playlist was just like, God help me, like just like basically tears, just screaming, just playing music in my car, just like letting,
Yes.
for real, some days it's tears, but just letting out those feelings through music also helped me.
Yeah.
And also basically trying to work on my physical posture so that I don't feel as much physical pain when I'm at work. That helped me as well.
So I actually did a quick survey at work last night, asking my coworkers what really helped them, what helps them with burnout. And some of the things they shared with me was for sure music. Music is life. Music is joy. When you can just plug your ears and just forget everything around you and just focus on that music and enjoy that time. Especially as ICU nurses, where you hear the beep every single time. When you
Yes,
get home,
alarm
the beep
fatigue.
and the alarm fatigue is what they call it.
Yeah.
You keep hearing the beeps in the ICU at home. So trying to listen to music in your house just changes that for you. And one of them told me about exercise. Just low intensity exercise where you maybe want to do yoga or something, or
Or
just
just stretching.
yeah,
Hmm.
stretching. That is really helpful. I think for me, what really one tip I have is that just share your experience with some nurses. Because I remember when I started on the medical ICU and Tenny was there, and I used to see her do a lot of stuff. I'm like, oh, she knows a lot of things. And but one day when she told me, oh gosh, she started to walk, things like that, I was able to connect that. Oh, someone actually feels the same way I feel. Okay, that's understanding when I can kind of feel among, because I was thinking I was the only one that was crashing, and I didn't know what I was doing when I first started, and I was kind of afraid about it. And I'm like, am I supposed to be in nursing at all? But I can tell you it has really changed. Things have changed from when I first started. So also sharing your experience with coworkers or people who share the same values as nurses with you, and just sharing your traumatic experience and your pain together. Just find someone to cry with. It just soften things. So that has been also very helpful for me in person. So
And
yeah,
yeah, and thank you, Maura, for sharing your
Oh,
experience.
for
It's
sure.
it's a really brave thing to go through, just being able to share experience with the world. Really appreciate you. We do not take it for granted. And
thank
thank you for
you.
coming, being with us, sharing your experience, and being on our YouTube channel.
Oh, anytime.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you all for watching this
Yes,
video. This
thank
is part
you.
one. Watch out for part two. Still talking about nursing. So,
Yes. All right, guys. You take
see
care. Hopefully, you
y'all.
don't burn out. Absorb, emote, promote.
You want to tell our fans bye, Maura?
Bye.
Bye.